That's a cute outfit. The one we always wear?
A few inches later.
Ugh, guys, I don't even know where to start with this one, okay? Rick and Morty's had some pretty out-of-pocket moments, okay? So the bar for what the show brings to me as a truly WTF moment has been raised pretty high. Or should I say low? Anyways, this episode met those expectations. And I truly do not know how to feel. I guess uncomfortable would be the start. And we all know exactly what I'm talking about, okay? I'm not gonna dance around it, I'll get straight to the point. This episode was insanely weird. I mean, this video game plotline made no sense. God, it made me so uncomfortable. Video game parodies? Bro, that's not nice. People made those games. Are you making fun of them, Rick and Morty? God, I just felt so awkward watching it. Only this part too. I'm only talking about the gaming stuff. Absolutely no other part of this episode. It's just seeing them make fun of video games. I don't know. It was super awkward and uncomfortable for me to watch. Yeah, well, that pretty much wraps it up for this video. I mean, I don't have too much to say. I'm just kidding. You know what I'm talking about, you little weirdos. That's right. This episode, we saw Beth cheat on Jerry with Beth. Let's just get into the breakdown and try to make sense of this. Okay, so this episode opens being another holiday episode, specifically Thanksgiving. We know this because Rick literally enters as like a turkey and alludes to being pardoned, which is some weird lame ritual the White House does every year. I don't know, it's all capitalism. This is like, I swear to God, like the 5th Thanksgiving special this show has had, and they even joke about it in the episode, which I thought was pretty clever. Anyways, Morty is installing a brand new video game system, which apparently has some of the most realistic games in the world. I mean, this man's literally played Roy. I don't know what his expectations are, but okay. Now, right off the bat, this kind of feels to me like a sort of half-baked sister plotline to like Interdimensional Cable, but with video games. I suspect they probably meant for this to be like an entire episode, and I can't lie, that concept sounds like it would translate really well, but you'll see soon this plotline takes quite a back seat. So he reveals he got the console from Space Beth, and that she's visiting for Thanksgiving. The show features a typical awkward Thanksgiving dinner, very on brand for the Smiths, where Jerry alludes to the fact that he will literally kill himself if Beth cheats on him or leaves him, definitely not alluding to anything at all. Early on in the episode, you can tell that Beth and Space Beth are just really getting along. So well, in fact, that the two eventually have a quasi-romantic moment. And this is where the episode, it gets weird. Now, Summer saw this and immediately throws herself into the video game to distract herself and just not have to think about it, which kind of ends up being the B-plot. On top of showing these funny video game parodies where they turn up the realism all the way, they're funny, they're creative concepts, but the A-plot is just so out of pocket that I don't know. So Beth and Space Beth spend some time getting to know each other a little bit more. And yeah, it's as weird or not weird as you make it. I'm still processing it. It's very Rick and Morty. Anyways, Earthbeth kind of feels guilty and then goes to Rick and kind of alludes to what's going on, to which Rick explains that he's been there before and gives her some vague advice along with his condolences in a weird way. So Earthbeth and Spacebeth continue their romantic relationship in secret while Jerry is none the wiser, because he's literally Jerry. This kind of reaches a head when everybody in the family finds out in one way or another, and they catch Beth and Spacebeth living out their lives in a simulation, something Rick points out is a Black Mirror reference, which I thought was pretty funny. So with tension at an all-time high, Spacebeth just bluntly breaks the news to Jerry, to which he responds by retreating into a bug shell. Yeah, I guess Rick installed that. I mean, it just makes sense. Rick reveals that he's stuck in that shell and won't come out unless he's ready to, causing Beth and Spacebeth to have a heart-to-heart about their individual lives. They both decide it's best if they just forget about all of this, and enlist Rick to, quote, eternal sunshine them, which basically means just erasing all the memories of them being romantically involved. Something Rick points out is selfish, but who is he to talk? This causes Jerry to come out of his shell and put his foot down. But as he goes to pack up his stuff and leave, before anyone worries that we're gonna have a repeat of season 2, the show does a very sexual 180. And I'm not gonna get into details because I want this video monetized, but the three make up their differences. I can't even begin to play what happens. It's just audio, and yeah, stuff happens. Something the rest of the family has to unfortunately hear. They allude to the fact that portal technology is still broken.
You need to fix the portal gun, Rick! Morty, you asking me makes me want to do it less.
Spacebeth leaves, and the Smith family is back to normal. Well, as normal as they can be. So it was a whirlwind of an episode, I won't lie, but that's not to say there's not a lot we can break down. There's a ton of information this episode gives us, some deeper insight into the characters and their relationships, and overall just a lot to say. So without further ado, let's dive deeper into this episode, and no, that wasn't an innuendo, and yes, you're gross. In case there was any shred of doubt left, Beth is a tried and true narcissist, backed up by the man himself, Dan Harmon.
and Lane proposed that maybe the Beths would be into each other. It made a lot of sense to me as a narcissist.
But this leads to Beth having an extremely unconventional arc, par for the course for Rick and Morty. Instead of growing as a person by having to make sacrifices, get humbled by loss, and gain empathy for others, you know, the stuff you'd come to expect from these kinds of characters, Beth is dealing with the exact opposite. Beth is able to explore other paths in her life, figure out her own identity, and now even rack up sexual experience with another partner without having to change a single thing about the life she settled for with Jerry. The closest you could physically get to having your cake and eating it too. That sounds really weird in this context. I'm gonna move on. Beth has proven in these episodes that even when she makes decisions that'll benefit others, she's still ultimately working in her best interest. She wants to work things out so it stops inconveniencing her. While the spotlight is usually on Space Beth for her innate cool factor, what we learned about Earth Beth is nothing to ignore. To build upon the previous point, it's obvious that the domestic lifestyle isn't bringing Beth to her full potential, something Space Beth tries to remedy, and she's pretty vocal throughout the episode that what she's built in the cosmos isn't hers but theirs. It's reminiscent of the philosophy a lot of Rick share, how the multiverse is theirs for the taking, and they can do whatever they want throughout the cosmos consequence-free. Beth is living by that mindset flawlessly. Beth doesn't face a single comeuppance in this episode. She has an affair with herself, gets caught up by her children and dad, who all help her cover up in the end. Jerry finds out, but he ultimately decides he's cool with it. I mean, the Beths were ready to just retcon this episode out of their brains completely, and he told them not to for his comfort, and that if his wife did leave him, he'd just cry and be pathetic about it for a while. But out of all the enablers, by far the most interesting one, when it comes to his history with cloning and his daughter, is Rick. Being Rick's daughter means there's pretty good odds you're going to inherit his super intelligence, incredible battle skills, sci-fi drip, and overall sense of superiority. Speth, or Space Beth if you want to be boring, locked out on this completely. When it comes to her behavior, Space Beth is the spitting image of her father. The show isn't shy about the fact that Space Beth ultimately is going through a phase, one that Rick repeatedly reminds his daughter he went through in his prime. You can read Space Beth like a book, and has since her season 4 debut. Rick had enough foresight to call the two Beths hooking up, as he himself experimented with clones back in the day. Yet instead of steering her in the right direction, or one that is quote morally correct, Rick is feeding into Beth's narcissism and pushing her to have everything she wants. And the reason why is obvious. Rick is projecting. His biological Beth died tragically before his very eyes, and he blamed himself for decades. He's always felt like he's a terrible father, and for the longest time, all of his attempts to redeem that image in his mind were met with pushback from Beth. The turning point for this is found at the very end of season 3, when he not only introduces Beth to the cloning lifestyle, but also struggles to kill a potential duplicate of his daughter, claiming he was coming after Jerry's life instead, but folding all the same. The ending of that episode saw Rick resign the power he held in the family for Beth, for the sake of staying in her life and keeping her happy, because he can't bear to part ways from her again. And we know Beth holds the power in the family from this point onward, because instead of Rick endangering the family in the next season finale, it's Space Beth. Flash forward to this week's episode, and Rick is helping Beth get away with her affair, while instilling more of his philosophy into her. I guess Rick believes if a loving, naive Beth is one that's prone to getting killed, a cold, hyper-aware Beth is one that'll survive in this cold world. It makes me wonder what future Space Beth will be like. Jaded, old alcoholic, maybe she's wearing a lab coat too. What if Morty has a kid? I smell a reboot. The only thing Beth hasn't experienced yet is interdimensional travel. It makes you wonder if it's something Space Beth hasn't cracked yet, or something she just isn't interested in. And again, this episode brings up the fact that portal travel is still busted, and Rick's reluctant to fix it, which we'll tackle in another episode this week. I mean, maybe Space Beth will play a role in interdimensional travel repair, but seeing how she handles one singular clone, I can't imagine how messy a multiverse of Beths would be. Still, it's important to acknowledge the way Rick treats Space Beth is always under the impression that he's been there before. He acted the same way and could care less about whatever scenario she gets herself into. For lack of better wording, he's been there, done that. This is a problem that he ultimately created from experience. Again, he was enabling this affair based on his past experiences. From the original clone problem, to Jerry's bug formation, to even the Eternal Sunshine plan the two Beths try to go through with, Rick is caught in the middle of and directly responsible for the entire mess that is this wild episode. Side note, I think the fact that Rick hooked Jerry up with this and was evidently drinking with him also shows that Rick doesn't hate Jerry as much as he used to, or acts like he still does in present day. He loves and is attached to all of his family. But sadly, this episode shows that Rick's dynamic with the two Beths is ultimately doomed to fail. Eventually, Space Beth is going to age into her own unique version of old Rick, preferably a version with better fashion sense. Seriously, Rick, what kicks are you wearing, bro? Smartest man in the galaxy, zero drip,
it's
unbelievable.
Not good.
Alright, enough stalling. Let's talk about Morty and Summer's newest trauma. Alright, let's address the kinky elephant in the room. This episode went places. Places I don't think I was fully ready to go. Like, I watched this episode by myself, and thank God I did, but I can't help but feel like it was just as weird to be watching this alone, especially without headphones on. Anyways, this episode did manage to tie up some serious loose ends regarding the awkward position Jerry and the Beths were in. Like, one version of her definitely left him, but the other was the most faithful, and by proxy, their marriage is finally solved, but also maybe she's just a clone and it's all actually super sad and pathetic and fake. Either way, it's very Rick and Morty to leave the situation in a permanent Schrodinger's cat scenario, and I fully believe we'll never truly know the answer. Like, I don't think there is one. Regardless, what this episode managed to do was answer the question, what does this throuple mean for their marriage? Is Jerry gonna try and make it work for both of them? Is he just gonna stick with his girl, the one who stuck with him? Well, this episode gave us answers we may or may not have needed. In the final moments of the episode, the three of them patch up their weird energy with a very electric scene. One that we don't get to see, but are forced to hear. And there are no greater horrors than ones created by the human imagination. Jerry is a cuck, but also somehow is elevated from the pathetic position he was in because, I mean, come on. If you're at the water cooler and your coworker overshares about how he has 2 wives who are the same person, but one's an intergalactic war criminal, and they all get it on every now and then, you're gonna feel just like a little bit of envy towards him, but also he might be schizophrenic because that's some wild rhetoric. Either way, it's like, yeah, you know, please don't ever open your mouth about it again, but also nice, man. You know, good W. Jerry also came full circle, opposing his parents' open marriage in season 1 to being one himself, cuck and all. Beth is just like her father, and Jerry is just like his. Oh god, I forgot about the Superman thing. This is a very twisted family. Bottom line, they seem to be happy, and are now in an even better position in terms of Space Beth popping in and out of the series whenever she decides she wants to, and the writers can think of a good way to work her into an episode. The other important takeaway of this episode is that Beth and Jerry are finally in a truly good spot. This was solidified when Beth consoled Jerry in his bug shell and expressed so deeply why she loved him. It's a twisted love, but I can't lie, on some level, it's super sweet to see. I think we can all agree the show's lower points were always centered around Beth and Jerry. I mean, the divorce just didn't land at all, and seeing these two, or technically 3 of them, get along finally is great. It's kind of saying goodbye to the messiest part of the show in a way. Now that the 3 of them have an established and solid dynamic, as weird as it is for me to think about, we can focus less on their dumb relationship drama and just move out of incest territory. I don't know what they were thinking. It's the least defendable thing in the world. I will always despise it and hate the show for it. And yeah, tragically, he exists in this dimension too. I mean, they had their out. I don't know who on the team is really sticking their neck out for this idea, but it's just not it. So, all in all, why does this make Space Beth so dangerous? To round this all out, let's talk about this episode and how it fits into the bigger picture of the series, because the trajectory Space Beth is heading in is a dangerous one that makes her dangerous. If she's willing to repeat Rick's past mistakes, enduring the same trials and tribulations that he's gone through, then it's only a matter of time before her actions catch up with the family. I don't think it's possible for the Beths to keep up their winning streak, especially because of their father's track record. Eventually, something bad's gonna happen to knock them down a peg, and I think that something bad has to do with the family Beth wanted to hold on to so desperately. See, even her character analysis is starting to sound like Rick's. It's getting weird. If you look back on the show's earlier years, the turning point was definitely when Rick's status as an intergalactic criminal collided with his ego in the iconic season 2 finale, the Wedding Squanchers, putting the family directly into harm's way, and when Rick had nowhere else to run, he decided to put the family first and save himself later. Luckily, this all helped the Galactic Federation play right into Rick's hands, and eventually everything worked out in his favor, but I don't think things will tie up in a neat little bow for Space Beth. History has a way of repeating itself. Space Beth is already the biggest op of the new Galactic Federation, so there's reason to believe that they're going to come swinging with a vengeance. In fact, we still have yet to see the family go up against those robots with the new Federation color scheme, as spotted in the trailer, but unlike when they went up against Rick, this time the Federation will have a much better idea of what to expect against Sanchez's daughter. This episode leaves Space Beth placed on a pedestal with an extremely inflated ego and the assurance from her family that everything will go her way, paving the way for high stakes and heartbreak on a magnitude never before seen when she does finally inevitably lose. Whether that means Space Beth has to sacrifice her own life, or if she ends up with blood on her hands, could you imagine a Rick and Morty where Jerry or Summer or even Earthbeth is dead and we just have to live with the consequences of what that would look like? It'd be crazy stuff. And at this point, I feel like they could do anything. You could say we're looking too deep into it now, but seriously, keep an eye out. Because by letting her get away with everything here, they're certainly building up for a bigger downfall later, just like they've done with Rick in the past. And this would still fuck with Rick's head because at the end of the day, whatever mistakes she makes, he's gonna feel compelled to take responsibility for. Dark times ahead for the Smiths, people, but Rule 34 artists are thriving, so it's a win-win. Anyways, guys, these are our thoughts on the episode. Of course, I'd love to hear yours. Well, maybe not all of them, but some of them. I don't know. Was this too out of pocket even for Rick and Morty? Did you think the video game stuff was funny? Because honestly, I thought it was so funny. I wish I got to see more of it. Either way, let us know in those comments down below. Tweet to us at Roundtable Vids or me at It's Retro Nemo, or check us out on Instagram at Roundtable Vids. Check out the links in the description below, including Toon Drip, where you can find cool animation themed merch. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay in the loop. That's going to be it for me, guys. I'm Nemo. This is a Roundtable video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.